Imagine being a teenage girl once again, not the soft version that everyone likes to romanticize, but the real version. I'm talking about the version where you entered into a room and immediately know where you stood in the social hierarchy, which places or which tables you could not or you could sit in, or who you could talk to or could not talk to, and also who you were supposed to be friends with and who you were supposed to ice out that week. That's the version of teenagehood that I'm talking about. Being a teenager as a woman is really not easy. There are so many operational situations within a hierarchy, things that are unwritten, unofficial, but also utterly unforgiving. There are rules that nobody says out loud, but everyone seems to know. There are silent contracts and silent alliances, and even there are girls who hold so much power in this hierarchy that there are people just following these people for years just for the opportunity to grab some of this power. And here is the part that makes my heart skip a beat every time I think about it, even years after. And it's that at that age, not being part of these inner circles feels like the end of the world. It feels like social suicide. The isolation is staggering, which is why when you're 14, 15, 16 years old, you will do anything and everything in order to be part of these circles. You will lie for someone. You will stay quiet even if you know you should speak up, but also you will do anything that people tell you in order to maintain your position in this circle. And some of these choices, the ones we make in hallways, in classrooms, or even on staircases, may follow us forever. And that is the story I am reviewing today. A story about what teenage girls will do in order to keep a secret, but most importantly, what happens when years later this secret refuses to stay buried. And this story is The Night Stairs by Erin Kelly. Let's talk about it. Hello, my gorgeous viewers and readers. Welcome back and welcome if you're new. I hope your weekend was filled with sneaky walks around your classroom halls, holy statues that seem to follow you everywhere you go, and the horrifying feeling of not being part of the social group you're desperately trying to fit into. Today's book was very kindly sent to me by Penguin Vintage Books. Thank you so much, team, for sending these to me. I really appreciate it. And I am glad to tell all of you that this book, The Night Stairs by Erin Kelly, is now available for purchase. It is now just being published. So wherever you go, wherever you buy your books, please make sure that you check if this book is available, because honestly, this is not a miss. Now, as always, because this copy was sent to me, I want to be upfront and I want to be honest. Just because a copy or a book was or has been gifted to me, that doesn't mean that my opinion about said book will change. I will not embellish my words, or I will not try to make a book sound better than it actually is just because this book has been gifted to me. And that is something that I make very clear from the get-go to everyone that I collaborate with. I will not lie to my viewers or to any of you just because I'm getting a book for free. And also, I have never gotten paid to promote a book, or at least so far. So I don't have the need to lie about a book or if I liked it or disliked it. So just to let you know, guys, my opinion about this book or any of the books that I get for free have been and will always be 100% honest. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into the review of this book. Just as a quick summary, The Night Stairs by Erin Kelly follows St Cordula, which is a convent / boarding school for teenage girls set in the UK. But this school is not like any other luxurious and very expensive boarding school. It actually has a legend painted into its stone walls. Back in the 1500s, when the school was nothing but a small convent, there was a young nun called Matilda. She unfortunately got pregnant and obviously got cast out of the convent, which was her whole entire world. St Cordula was the only thing that she knew. So obviously, she is pregnant, she is exiled, and she has nothing in her name, and she is literally nothing with her sisters. So, in an attack of guilt and repentance, she goes onto the night chapel and unfortunately falls down the stairs and passes away. But before she passes away, she writes in one of the chapel walls the words, "God forgive me." And then centuries later, the tradition is that each year, all these girls that come for the first year in St. Cordula's, they have to go to that chapel, that same chapel at night. They have to climb the night stairs and rewrite the words, "God forgive me." Because if they don't, then Matilda gets upset and she doesn't protect the girls. There are two timelines in this story, but the main timeline is set in 2025 and follows Fiona Fox, who is the headmistress of St. Cordula's and finds herself in an incredibly delicate situation. She is the one leading the project of unifying two schools, St. Cordula's, an all-girls school, and Gervaux, which is an all-boys school. So she finds herself in the midst of the final days of the project, days before she has to sign the contract to make the unification for the year after, when out of nowhere something strange happens with the girls, with the students. They all suddenly get an attack of vertigo. The problem here is that this is not the first time this happens, because 20 years ago in the same school, all girls one by one started experiencing the same vertigo, up to the point of one of the girls actually falling down the stairs and passing away, just the same way as Sister Matilda did. So obviously, the moment one of the girls starts experiencing vertigo, panic strikes in the school and everyone goes insane, because it feels as if the tradition and also the curse of Sister Matilda is alive once again. What makes these stories so compelling isn't just the ghost stories, but how well presented and captured the essence of teenagehood is. We see an ample of examples of girls experiencing the social hierarchies, the social behaviors and tribulations in order to fit into these circles, but also the mysticism and traditionalism of being a teenage girl, how influential you are, and also what you will do, or the extremes that you will get to in order to fit into the circles that you want to fit into. Overall, there are three main topics that really stood out to me from this book. The first one is the complexity of female teenagehood. We see over and over again in research that women and men experience teenagehood and the phase from childhood to adulthood completely different. And I will explain the reasons why in this topic. But the second topic that I thought was brilliant and so interesting was the teenage social hierarchy, more specifically the female teenage social hierarchy. Again, I think this is something that is incredibly different depending on your gender. I don't think that men and women experience social hierarchies the same. So I will also explain why and how they are related to this book. And then last but not least, I think one of the most fascinating topics of this book is the social conventions of one's environment and how they affect your teenagehood. So strap on, you are in for a ride. Starting with the first topic, the complexity of female teenagehood. So I was actually talking to my partner about it, and I was writing the script for this video, and it occurred to me that I have never experienced teenagehood as a boy, obviously because I am a woman. So I decided to ask him how did it feel like, the phase between child and teenager. How did that period feel? And honestly, his response genuinely shocked me. He literally said, and I quote, "I did not feel a thing. I just realized I was growing body hair and then I was as good as new." That is insane. Because I don't know about you girls, but my puberty was horrible. My puberty was not gentle. I was in the trenches. I felt like an average like creature. And all the girls that I know or that I have spoken to, they went through the same things. So this might be TMI, so please brace yourselves. So I got my period at the start of the summer when I was 15. I know late, I was a late bloomer. So imagine you being a child, obviously, and then all the girls start getting their periods and they start growing into teenagehood. Obviously, you feel like these girls are so adult. They are very tall. Obviously, they grow into women's bodies, and you are over there looking like 12 years old. So obviously, it was very isolating because I still felt like a child, or I still looked like a child, but even though I felt like a teenager. And then I got my period, and then in the span of 2 months, I'm saying 60 days, generally, I was a completely different person. Like, I grew 10 centimeters in 2 months. My whole entire body hurt. Like, every single bone in my body was hurting. I literally had to lay down on the cold floor of my house because of how painful my joints were. Also, I grew 3 sizes out of nowhere. I was so inflated like a balloon. Acne, I had acne everywhere in my body. Like, I literally had acne in my arms. Also, I started growing body hair out of nowhere. Like, literally, I started growing a unibrow, and I don't even have it anymore. But I remember just being so shocked about everything that was happening in my body. I felt like, literally, I got, like, my soul got sucked out and I got put into another body. I genuinely felt so strange. And this book does very well at presenting this journey. We see many characters explaining how their bodies change, or how other girls' bodies adapt with time. So obviously, hair starts growing, they start smelling, or there's acne, or there's this worry about their own bodies and feeling alienated. But most importantly, what changes is the perspective of their own bodies and also other people's bodies. So not only there is a policing from the school to ensure that girls are not sexualized, or that they don't sexualize themselves and dress modestly, obviously because of the huge religious undertones, but most importantly, we see how the girls self-police and police others. They constantly talk about their bodies, they talk about other people's bodies, but also they shame each other and they police themselves. The girls comment on their own bodies, but also on each other's bodies. They say how they smell, they say how ugly they look, how much acne they have, or how greasy their hair looks, but also how they are dressed, or what they are wearing, what are the things that they are doing. And they are constantly nitpicking every single thing that each girl does. It is a constant sense of policing. It feels as if you're constantly under a camera watching your every move. And this is exactly how it feels to be a teenage girl, not only from your own perspective, because obviously there is a lot of self-performance and self-policing when it comes to teenagehood, but most importantly, it feels as if you're constantly being looked at. People look at you to see what you're wearing, to see if you're not dressed too slutty, or that you are not dressed too modestly, but also to see what you are doing and what are the mistakes and the behaviors that you do. And this is one of the horrors of being a girl and being a teenager, and it's that you will constantly be policing yourself, because no matter what you do, no matter how many rules you follow, there will always be some criticisms. There will always be things that you should have done better. You should have covered yourself more, or you should have covered yourself less. But also you should stop other people from sexualizing you, even though you still look and are a child. So at the end of the day, one of the things that feel very horrific about being a teenager and being a girl teenager more specifically is the fact that you are meant to navigate an adult world even though you still have the memory and you still have the mindset of a child. Now, going into the second topic, and which I arguably think is the most terrifying one, is the social hierarchy of a girl teenager. Honestly, I still have nightmares about it. Imagine having to deal with the average horror that is female puberty and then having to deal with 200 people that are going through the same exact thing. Honestly, horrifying. That would be my 13th reason. It was almost my 13th reason. But I would rather eat my own fist than having to go back in time and experiencing it again. Whoever says that their teenage years were their golden years and that they wish to go back, I personally think that they are psychopaths and I want nothing to do with them. Because honestly, the social hierarchies as a teenage girl were the most disgusting thing that I have ever experienced. For those who don't know, social hierarchies within teenage girls are extremely complex. They are not as easy as films like Mean Girls make it out to be. In Hollywood, we see how teenage girls are separated within closed ecosystems. So you have the popular girls, you have the jocks or the sporty girls, you have the nerdy girls, and you have like all these like massive list of ecosystems that one can be, right? And even though in some situations it is true that people who are very similar get together, because obviously at the end of the day we have subcultures, how it works within teenage girls, it is actually a hierarchical system. So we have different staircases or different levels where one as an individual is in. At the end of the day, your position within the social hierarchy is heavily dependent on your own personal individual score, but also on the people that are surrounding you at any given time. So let me give you some examples. Let's say that your community heavily values someone who is sporty, who is fit, who has good grades, who is very extroverted. So if you are someone who is, I don't know, in the football team, and someone who is, let's say, the captain of the football team, and you are quite good looking, you probably are going to be quite high up into the social hierarchy at any given time, because that is what your community is enforcing, and you are following the status and what is required from people. But let's say that in this same hierarchy, you are a nerd, someone who likes anime, who likes manga, who likes K-pop. You probably are going to be quite low in the hierarchy at any given time, except when you are with people who like the same things as you. But let's say that now you are in an environment with 20 other girls who like the same thing as you, but the only thing that differentiates you from others is that you can speak Japanese or Korean. Then your social hierarchy within that group will be extremely high. It doesn't matter if you are a nerd or if you are extremely unpopular within the whole spectrum. In that specific ecosystem, you will be the alpha. And that is what is really fascinating but also terrifying about social hierarchies within female teenagers, because not only it is your popularity or your status or your desire and your importance is extremely dependent on who you are with, so therefore you have to remember this whole social hierarchy as a whole, but also at the same time it is extremely volatile, meaning that one day from another, or like in 1 week, one girl who is at the top of the popularity scale suddenly just drops to the bottom because she has done something that has made her extremely unpopular or extremely undesirable. So that is one thing that we also need to take into account, and is the fact that social hierarchies within female teenagers are not only very complex and very individual dependent, but also extremely volatile. So you can only imagine how terrifying it is for you to get into a completely new environment out of nowhere, where you have to learn all the unwritten, unofficial, and untold rules within that social environment. But also you need to learn about every single individual and every single ecosystem that appears in that environment. So at the end of the day, it is so not only terrifying and also extremely exhausting for you to follow around, but also it keeps you it roped in so much that you find yourself that your only value is your social ranking, not only within the whole group as a whole, but also within the ecosystem that you're in. You need to constantly be interacting and be testing the waters to see where you're at. More specifically, if you find yourself within either the middle ground or low middle ground, like your whole entire life depends on this, not only because you want to be high or you try to be higher than you were before, but also because if you are outside of these ecosystems or you are completely isolated, being at the bottom of the barrel, your life is insufferable. And it gets worse because not only you are hyper aware of the position that you're in, but also you are hyper aware of what the people over you are doing. And usually when it comes to these situations, there are a lot of people who are in the top or at the top of the hierarchy who tend to be quite brutal and quite cruel with the people underneath them, not only because they feel like they have the power to do so and to get away with it, but also because overall they are so pressured by being into that category, into the top of the hierarchy, that they feel that the hatred and the pressure trickling down towards the other people underneath. And if that is not horrible enough, imagine having to deal with the horrors of puberty, with the cruelty of social hierarchies, and then add another layer, which are social conventions. So obviously, it doesn't matter what culture you're from, or it doesn't matter what your environment is, social hierarchies will always exist. But these social hierarchies are also extremely dependent on your environment and your culture. In this case, the social expectations or the social conventions within the social hierarchy are very Catholic dependent, because at the end of the day, St Cordula's is a Catholic boarding school. So obviously we have the religiousness, the strictness of the environment and having teachers living with you, but also there are these behaviors of modesty, slut shaming, over sexualization that are very prominent and very active within the society and within the social environment. Now, if you connect every single point together, you find the perfect recipe for a cult or for a cult-like mentality. So if you have a group of girls who are extremely dependent on each other, who are also going through one of, if not the biggest physical and emotional changes within their entire body, and also who are in a very restrictive and morally dependent environment, whatever happens to one of them, especially if they are up in the hierarchy overall, will trickle down to every single girl. And this is exactly why when one of the girls got the spins, everyone else got them too. They got this vertigo, because it is so natural and it is so intrinsic for you to follow the group, just so you are not excluded and just so you don't feel different and isolated. Because being isolated and being outside of every single ecosystem not only feels lonely, but also it feels dangerous. It feels like the end of the world, because at the end of the day, it is the end of your world. You are extremely isolated, not only socially, but also you are outside of the culture that you are one of. So it makes so much sense that when one of the girls gets the spins, everyone else starts getting them too. Not only because if you get the spins, you feel part of this community, but also because it is intrinsic in you. You have a codependency with the rest of the group. And this is what makes this story so great and so fascinating, and genuinely one of the best psychological thrillers that I have read in a long time. Because the real curse the real sickness here is not the spins or is not the vertigo. It is the generational trauma and the generational curse that these girls are experiencing. Because even though the vertigo symptoms feel very real, the actual issue or the actual illness underneath is cultural. So if you live in an environment that tells you that your changing body is disgusting, it's sexual, that you have to cover it, that you have to be modest, and that you have to behave a certain way and have certain expectations, because if you don't follow these, you will be isolated, what happens afterwards is that your body just explodes. Your body finds a way to express all this anxiety that you have been feeling. And that is how the spins or how the vertigo and these symptoms start. And then once these symptoms starts with one person, then everyone else gets sick, everyone else has the same sort of experience, because that is how the body communicates. This book has many, many secrets, but the secret at the heart of this story is that teenage girls will do everything and anything to feel like they belong, to feel like their experience is not unique, and to feel accompanied in a time of need, especially if there is an environment that is strict and that tells us that we are undesirable, that we are ugly, and that we are not worth it if we don't follow the same social conventions. As a quick conclusion, The Night Stairs by Erin Kelly is a magnificent gothic mystery about haunted staircases and a school that is desperately trying to stop history from repeating itself. This is a beautifully haunted story about how impossibly hard it is to grow into a body that is constantly changing, but also that is constantly being pleased. And this is a great example of how it feels to be a child and grow into your teenage body, or to grow into the woman that you will one day be. Honestly, this has pleasantly surprised me. I genuinely love this book, and if you have the opportunity to read this book, please do so. This is not a miss. If you are a girl, genuinely you will relate to these books so much. I know I did. That's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching and for staying until the end. I know that I spoke a lot right now, but yeah, I would love for you guys to give an opportunity to The Night Stairs by Erin Kelly. This book was phenomenal. I absolutely loved it. And again, thank you so much, Penguin Vintage Books, for sending me this book. This was a great opportunity and I am truly grateful. And before you go, there is a question I would love to ask all of you, and it's, how was your experience with puberty? Obviously, I've told a little bit about my experience, but I would love to know your experience as well. Please tell me everything. There is no TMI here. That's the only TMI I know is tell me immediately. So please make sure that you tell me what was your experience growing up with puberty. Please tell me. And yeah, so please let me know in the comments. And obviously, if you like the video, please make sure that you like and subscribe to my channel. I have a lot more videos. And also, if you want, please make sure that you follow me on my social media. I post that every day and I will post a lot more content about this book. So also please make sure that you follow up there. But yeah, that's all for today. And thank you so much for watching. And I hope I will see you next week. Bye, guys.